everybody. I'm Marcos.
And I'm Kirsten.
And this is the Minnesota Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Join us every week as we discuss real estate investing in the land of 10,000 lakes.
This is like weathering the storm type of season here, you know. Yeah. We're going to lose half the real estate agents in the market if this continues much longer, you know.
Yeah.
People are going to have to get real jobs, so to speak. I had this client that was trying to do short-term rentals and then asked me to help him to evaluate doing, switching into long-term rental because it wasn't working out. Mm-hmm. There was like all these like issues with the paint, the carpet was dirty and stuff. And I told the guy, I go, neither model is going to work for you until you do it right. And I told them, like, if you want to do long-term rental, you're going to have to spend $15,000 in order to get this thing the way you want to do it. Yeah. If you want to do a short-term rental, I think you're going to spend $40,000 because you need to get rid of every piece of furniture.
You need a designer with stuff like that. Otherwise, your property is not going to make as much money, and there's like a huge long list of things you need to know about. So, no, I think that's good because I think a lot of people they probably go back and forth, oh, why would I need property management? Like, for us, it was an easy decision after I would have to go to our property and be like, oh my God, like this is broken and this is broken and oh my God, it's so dirty. Like I could not deal with it. Yeah. And so for me, that was a no-brainer, but.
Welcome everyone. This is another episode of our podcast. I hope you enjoyed the last one. Today, we are with Ryan Schroder, our broker.
Hello.
We're going to talk about management for income properties. So we're very excited for today because we're going to ask you a bunch of questions on how you manage, how you run this part of the business, a lot of things. So you guys can have the information and decide what you want to do with your own investments.
Mm-hmm. So the first question.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here. I know you're busy.
Yes.
So, thank you.
We were able to find an hour and a half there that worked for both of us.
It's been a while since I've done a podcast. I did probably 200 or 300 between 2016 and 2018, and came up for air for a few years here on podcast. But
I was subscribed to your podcast.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I actually never listened to any of them.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah. Well, it was after the fact that you had already done them.
Yeah,
so.
Sure.
Okay. So we were talking about this before. My first question is, why did you decide to start property management business?
The reason that I had started a property management company was prior to doing that, I had been an assistant to a business broker and had been exposed to business brokerage transactions, and then for 4 years after that was doing hotel brokering. And with hotel brokering, the commissions were really big, like $20,000, $50,000, $60,000. But you could go 3 months, 6 months, 9 months between commissions, and I could never really quite decide if I was able to afford things. It was really hard to budget, really hard to know what kind of like lifestyle I could really have, and so that stressed me out. And then in 2009, when the real estate market really just the market in general, stock, everything fell apart, I had gone 13 months without making a paycheck, and it got to be to where I just really couldn't do that anymore. So I sold my soul and got a job for a corporation doing sales so that I could get a salary and get things balanced. I had my best friend at the time, Goran Vasevich, who's the V in VSM. I helped him to get a job at the place where I was at, and we were cube mates with our backs to each other. I owned one investment property and he owned 4, and we started to just trade notes on how we were doing things, and I kind of probably learned a lot from him on that to begin with. And then we bought our first property together, which was in Minneapolis in this condo building. And so from there, the other people in that condo building started saying, well, how'd you find a tenant? Could you help us to do it? And so we got our first couple of property management clients just by kind of word of mouth through people who also own units in that building. And within probably a month or so, we grew from 5 to about 19 doors under management, and I remember I went to Goran and I said, I don't want to be in this cube much longer, and so let's consider doing this as a business. So we formed a business partnership to do property management, and we kind of just intuitively knew it was the right time, because with the real estate market being so depressed, people really had three choices. You can either foreclose to get out of your house, you can rent your house, or you can come to the table with a bunch of cash. And in order to come to the table with a bunch of cash to get out of your property, you're probably selling your stocks and other things at an even bigger loss, and so it was just an ugly proposition. So we just thought the market timing was right for it, and so for about a year I did that sales job concurrently while growing VSM, and got VSM to about 100 doors before I let go of the job that I had. So.
Okay. I didn't know you started that long ago. I thought it was like, why did I? Wow, and very interesting.
2009 is when we bought our first property together, and 2010 is when the management company started.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really just been in the past few years that you've been trying to, like, really, really grow it, or?
No, I would say during 2010 to about 2015, the market was really ripe for property management. Mm-hmm. And then from about 2016 till mid-2022, the market was not ripe for it. So imagine the proposition of saying, hey, do you want to rent your house and cash flow $100 a month with the risk of having to replace a furnace and this, that, and the other thing? Or do you want to sell it and walk away with $100,000 at closing table? So we had grown it all the way to over 500 doors in 2016, and then it dropped all the way to about 200 doors in mid-2022, because everybody who was our client for the most part, I could call them landlords by default. They didn't set out to be a landlord. The only 200 that we had left were the ones who were true blue investors who were in it for the long haul. And so I saw the flaws with that business model, and so then I decided to make more of a outbound sales effort to grow the property management division with people who sought to be investors for the long term, not people who were sort of backed into that as their only option.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because you were working with people that were basically stuck with that house.
Correct.
Until they could get above water.
Yeah.
Because
they all own one property.
Yeah.
I had to educate them about everything from, about the process to the tax implications and the legal liability concerns, and not to say that they're more difficult than true blue investors. They both have their pros and cons. The big time investors, they think they know it all. At least with the people who are more the novices, I was definitely the expert, and they respected that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so we can skip to the question about what makes VSM's property management stand out, because I think that really makes a good segue into there.
Well, I would say one of the biggest things is I entered this business as a real estate investor first and foremost. And when I first started looking for property management, I had actually started by looking for third-party management, because I didn't want to do that at first. It's not like this is a glamorous, sexy career to have or anything, right? It's dirty work. But I decided to build a company that was exactly how I would want it if I were a real estate investor, which is to say a one-stop shop that could handle everything from placing tenants to collecting rent, handling maintenance, helping you to buy and sell the properties, providing that high level of investment expertise. And I didn't really see any companies out there that seemed to do it all and offer it all. And so that was one of the biggest reasons that or one of the biggest differences with us is we're a one-stop shop. And then secondly, I would say I take everything very personally. My name is in the title of the business, and so it's really hard for me to separate myself from it. So I'm very passionate about everything that I do. I strive to have the best reviews and the best customer reputation, all that kind of stuff. And I've been proud to say that for the last, I think, 5-6 years, we've been the highest rated management company in the Twin Cities on Google and Facebook. And, that's something that's a big source of pride for me and for our company.
Well, and that's no small deed there.
Yeah, it's really hard to get good reviews at the property.
Exactly.
Very
like
hard.
property management is like police getting good reviews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Right? Because
'cause
you're enforcing things all the time, and it's hard.
And you're getting good reviews from landlords and tenants too, which
Correct.
is that, I mean, landlords, yeah, you can be have good reviews from them because, you know, you're tough and everything, but getting good reviews from tenants, that's
Right.
that's the
That comes down to like really going above and beyond with service. And it's not to say that we always get perfect reviews. Unfortunately, we don't. You know, it pains me every time that it happens. I feel the sting every single time. But like I said, I'm passionate about it. I'm competitive. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm trying to be the best. So
Yeah.
If I weren't doing this, I'd be still striving to be the best in something else. So
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of funny to me. You know, I always relate everything to Argentina and all the possibilities that are here that we don't have down there, and in Latin America in general, and how everything works. Like, for example, something that's really common for any broker in Argentina is to have a setup like VSM has, have management and brokerage, like be helping everyone. Like, you're a tenant, we help you. You're a landlord, we'll help you. You want to sell, we'll help you. You want to buy, we'll help you. It's much different. Like real estate in Argentina, don't touch it, if you ask me, unless you're doing really high-end stuff or hotels and things like that. But it's really funny because when we met with you, you know, the first time and we started doing research, I was thinking about that. This is a setup that's going to work on any type of market. Like, it goes up, we sell, we buy. It goes down, we manage.
That's a great point. I think building a business with a hedge for whichever direction the real estate market is heading is great. We actually don't do as well as maybe a pure brokerage would in an up market because of our expertise isn't exactly in that side of it, but we can still capitalize on it when the market is going up.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we also did so much flipping and other things like that could capitalize on that side of an appreciating market. But definitely, I've been wondering when the market was going to correct, because we had about a 11-year period where things just went up and up and up, and so I'm kind of hoping that this is my moment in the sunshine here with if there's a recession. I know it's bad for people, but there are, like, just like in the COVID thing, there were winners in that. You know, Purell,
Always
for example,
people get rich
you know,
in a recession.
right? You know, so my business started in a recession, and so in some ways I was almost clamoring for it.
Yeah.
I think that every investor is like, okay, yeah, now it's going to be the time to buy. Yeah, I saved that all my money for the last how many years, and yes, it's happening.
I watched all those HGTV episodes. I'm ready now. You know?
Yeah, God.
Yeah, don't do that. Call us. Call Ryan, call us, and we'll help you with everything. Don't worry about it.
For sure.
Do you think that hiring a property manager is important to scale if you want to have like a large portfolio in real estate?
I do. I think it's especially important if you have a high income job and you're busy, like, you know, you have family or this or that. The majority of the people that we are getting for management clients now are people who have been too busy to focus on their rental properties, and by the time they need us, they're in a deep hole. I have seen, like, for example, the most recent client that I got, their tenant hasn't paid rent in 11 months, and they're just too busy to deal with it, right? And then the city did their rental license inspection and hit them with a 39-item long list of things that need to get done. And just like anything, if you take your eye off of it, it'll go to shit.
Yep.
And like, whether that's like, if you stop mowing your lawn for 9 months, you know, it's going to be going to be long and gross. It's going to have weeds. It's going to be wilt over. So if you're not going to make it your focus, then you should hire somebody who will. And if you are a really diligent landlord and you feel like you want to take it on and do all of it yourself, and you want to be really diligent with screening tenants and being on top of maintenance and making sure that rents are collected on time and, handling everything from tax paperwork and all this kind of stuff, then all power, more power to you. But if you want a professional who's done it thousands of times and has a whole team and infrastructure built around doing this for others, and you just want to kind of click the easy button, that's why you would hire a property manager.
Yeah.
I'm not a mechanic, so if something breaks on my car, I'm not going to sit there and go on YouTube and try and figure out how to do it. I'm just going to bring it to somebody who knows, because chances of them screwing it up are way lower. And I view property management the same way. If you're not actually interested and naturally want to do it, then just hire somebody else to do it. Don't think it's so easy, because there is risks. Another property that we took on recently, the owner had been managing it themselves, and they didn't have a rental license. Their tenant stopped paying rent, and they went to evict the tenant. And then when they went to court, the tenant had an advocacy group represent them. It turns out that they had been renting it without a license this whole time. So instead of getting them evicted, he had to pay that tenant $33,000 at their court. And that's just, to me, I call that the high cost of saving money, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, you could really make it a lot worse for yourself. Because you could get into a lawsuit or a discrimination thing, or it could be other things, even if you don't intend to. Little things like saying, you could advertise your property and say, great, for families, near parks and stuff like that. You've just discriminated.
I know.
Even though that's feels like a harmless thing to say, it's discrimination. So, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could walk right into that.
Yeah, and it goes from management to buying and selling a house. You need the expert always, like you were saying. Targeting your house for families, well, that's a big no-no.
Right.
But we would know that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always like that. And for example, I received a call yesterday from my guy for the money market we have and all that stuff, and he was telling me, hey, you have this now in this setup that's making you this much. I have something that we can put half of it and make 3 times as much. And I'm like, okay, you're the expert, what's the risk? I always ask that.
Right.
I'm an investor for
what do
everything.
I need to know?
What do I need to know here? And he was like, basically, well, if you lose money, we're going to have bigger things to worry about. There's a little risk, but it's not, okay, that's all I need to know, put 50% in there, And that's the same thing with management. What do I need to do to make it as safe as possible? There's always risk.
Yeah. One thing I'll also add is, when we started this business, we were using the Minnesota Standard Residential Lease Form that, just anybody can get access to. It's a statutory provided form. That thing was 6 pages. Our current lease is 18 pages long, right? I call that an experience-based document. So every time something happens that we weren't expecting, that gets added. And, we learn how to protect our clients' interests more and more and more. And, one of the things that makes VSM unique as well is we only represent the owners in the transaction. Because as we know from being in real estate, if you represent both sides, that's dual agency, and there's a whole, can of worms with that. So you had to pick who you're going to represent. Well, at the end of the day, the owner is the one who initiates contact with us typically, or we initiate contact with them. So we pick them as the person that we're going to represent in the transaction. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't owe honest, fair business dealings with the tenants. The tenants have plenty of protections under the laws in Minnesota as well. If anything, I feel like the landlords are the ones that are disadvantaged in the whole transaction. And I've seen it in court cases too many times where it feels like the judges are deciding based on who has more and who has less, not what the actual documents and say. So.
Yeah, that's good. In this state, we were just talking about that in our meeting before this, this is not a landlord-friendly state. Right. So it's nice that you are a landlord-friendly property management firm. So,
And at the end of the day, the tenants are our customers as well in a way. And, obviously they're the ones paying the rent. So we owe them, the same kind of level of service that you would expect. But, But yeah, for the owner, it all comes down to the thing that we do to protect them first and foremost is the contract.
Yeah, that's great that you keep adding to the contract. We did that too with our duplex. There are always things that come up that you have to add, and that definitely sets you apart from, I'm sure, other property managers who just keep the same one no matter what happens, because that's a lot of work to have to go through. And
yeah, well, I always bring up the same example. I remember the first time that I rented in Minnesota, like fresh off from Buenos Aires. I never saw a contract in the United States, and our lender made us sign the lease. It was 1 page long. It didn't have much in there. Like, it just said, you can't have parties, this is the rent, and, couple little things there. Didn't have anything about pets, didn't have anything about nothing. And I was like, oh, this is how you do business in the United States. Wow. Like,
so relaxed.
So relaxed. How much trust you have in people here. In Argentina, they're thick, like 36, 50 pages, something like that, and you have all these provisions, and that's why we're here with you today, too.
Yes. You are the ideal type of person for me to have met, both of you, and I could tell right away that your interests align with us. We're not for everyone, but we're for the people who have a focus on the investment side of the residential real estate game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my next question is, what types of properties do you manage? Residential, commercial?
We manage residential properties, so commercial is kind of there's different ways to define that, right? Some people consider anything with 5 units or more as commercial. I would agree with that as well. So in that regard, yes, we'll do commercial, but we're not out there doing like retail or office type of real estate or management, rather. We are definitely focused on the types of property where people sleep in at night. And so our bread and butter is definitely 1 to 4 unit residential. We do have a couple of apartment buildings that we manage as well, and we've managed a few in the past as well, but that's not probably our main focus. One of the apartments that we manage is one that I own, so obviously it makes sense that I'm not going to outsource the management on that. But that's the one in St. Paul where we actually had our first office. So.
Okay. Do you think you'll move into more apartment management, more commercial in the future? I
think we will. We definitely want to. There's one thing that I've learned is that you have to be focused, because in the past I had been involved in as many as 13 different businesses at once, and I was spread really thin, and I realized that being okay at a bunch of things is not as good as being great at 1 or 2 things. Considering that VSM already does property management, real estate brokerage, and construction, I didn't think that adding too many more focal points was a good idea. So the plan is for us to continue to gather strong business segment leaders who can run different verticals within the company, and then start to grow kind of organically. And we're going to use management as kind of the hub of the wheel for us to be able to grow, because it provides that steady recurring revenue and that stability and everything. If we didn't have management, I don't see us having an office. I don't see us having all these other things, because it'd be too much variability to the situation.
Definitely. Okay, so let's move on to the last question, which is, where do you see the market going with rents? I know we were kind of talking about that at the beginning, but like, what's going on with the rental market in Minnesota?
Well, every year there is a seasonal slowdown, and so December, January, and February are the 3, softest months of the years. And obviously that's, if anybody who lives in Minnesota knows exactly why, which is it's super cold. Like, who wants to move during this time of the year? So number 1, we're seeing a seasonal slowdown. Number 2, inflation and other macro factors going on in the economy have started to kind of spill over into the real estate market in general. Home prices have retreated somewhat. It's still a little too soon to tell if rents are going to retreat as well, because we're only really experiencing that seasonal part of it right now. But I anticipate them staying actually fairly strong, because in an inflationary market, rents can react fairly quickly, and so I think that they're going to continue to stay high. I think there's a lot of people that were contemplating buying a house that are just going to sit out for a while because they feel interest rates are too high, and so as long as that continues to be the case, I think that'll continue to constrict supply. Add also the builders are building a lot of houses right now, but they're all really big houses, and they're usually farther out, like, you know, deep into the suburbs and stuff like that. And so it's not like people are building, you know, townhouses and affordable type rental properties. And then add also to that, like I mentioned earlier, we went from 500 to about 200 doors under management. I'm guessing that all those landlord by default that existed in our market have also exited, so that also is constricting supply. Now, there's a lot of apartments being built, which is the other side of it, that's increasing supply, but specifically with the single family and smaller, like duplex type rental market, I think that that still should hopefully be pretty strong.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. I mean, because we are looking to buy as well, and when I see a good deal in multifamily, small multifamily, it's gone. Like, it still gets either multiple offers or it's off the market pretty quick. So there are still investors out there looking to buy, but the numbers have to be, you know, super good, and that's hard to find.
It is especially hard right now when interest rates rise. Cap rates need to rise accordingly, or else, you know, for 2020 to, you know, mid 2022, the cap rates that I was getting on my investment properties were on average about 6.5%, which was okay when interest rates were in the 4s or whatever. There's at least a little bit of a delta, even though it was kind of soft. But now that interest rates are in the 6s and 7s, why would you bother? I mean, you could just put it in a bond or, you know, a money market and get a better return without the risk. So
yep, exactly. Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions, Marcos? Have you thought of anything?
No, those were all the questions that I think we had. I don't know if you had any advice for people that want to get into investing.
I would say there's an expression, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. My very first investment property, I bought in 2007, right before there was a crash. I bought it for $197,000. The next year is worth $110,000. What I did is I took advantage of the HARP mortgage refinance thing that Obama had put in when he was president. Basically, it said you could refinance no matter what your loan to value was. And so I was able to get my interest rate from 6.75 to 3.75 on a 15-year fixed. And basically I lost about $560 a month on the first year of renting it, and then every year I raised the rent by about $50. And so little by little I started to actually, you know, not be in the red. It took 11 years, and just this year the property got paid off. So all that's to say, be diligent. Like, real estate is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you think it is, then it's not going to work out well for you. If you look at it with a long-term view that I'm going to rent it and have that rent pay for the property over the duration of the mortgage, and then once it's done, I own this asset free and clear, that's a very achievable goal for people. And so whether the market goes up or down, I can tell you that I don't see the U.S. government ever stopping the money printer. And so assets are going to be inflated in value over time. And your only protection against inflation is really to own assets. And so grab onto them and hold on to them. Don't buy depreciable stuff as much as you can. I mean, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and talk about buying liabilities versus buying assets, and approach investing that way. Yeah, that's basically the Bible. Like, I don't think we had anyone in the podcast that didn't at least mention it once. It's a mindset book, and it was really important to me. It was the first thing that kind of threw the light bulb on for me. And then the next book I read was from that series, Real Estate Loopholes, where they talk about all the ways you can save on taxes and be bulletproof from lawsuits, and educate yourself. If this is really a business that you want to be in, you can either hire someone like us and we'll do the heavy lifting for you, or you got do a lot of learning. But I mean, there's a school of hard knocks, and if you make your money, if you're a high W-2 wage earner and you want to invest in real estate, I would advise you to focus on how you make that money and hire a professional, just the same as you would if you were hiring a financial advisor or a doctor or a lawyer for whatever their functions are. Do the same. Do the same here.
The team is gonna set you apart from other people that are investing,
Right.
Rather than trying to do all yourself.
Right. I mean, you have to do this. I think to do it well, you have to do it full time, and it has to be your focus. This isn't a side hustle that I see people be successful in.
Mm-hmm. No, it's you have to be immersed in it. That's why we all are, successful at it, because we are immersed in it.
Right.
Or at least we know how to do it.
Yeah. And you're going to continue to get better at it the more you do it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
like a muscle.
For sure.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll end it here. And yeah, we hope that you guys got some really valuable information. We always do when we sit down and talk with Ryan, so we're so grateful to be with VSM and have him as a resource.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, and I hope you guys had a nice time listening and watching this video.
I'm sure learning about property managing is riveting stuff for people.
Yeah,
It's like,
well.
maybe we'll do one on sewers next.
Or plumbing in
Yeah.
your rental property. Yes.
Oh
No,
my
I
gosh.
think we had some great information. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it and took some valuable information out of it. If you want to reach out to us with comments or questions, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and our website, milagrohomesre.com.